Survivor Specialist Phil and Alexa are back with our episode 7 recap of our Survivor China rewatch. And today we are joined by Peih-Gee Law of Survivor China, who was in this merge episode and survived it. I still don't really quite understand how. I don't know what it was that got Jamie out of there before you. I think it was a big mistake by Fei Long. But it is great to have you on here, Peih-Gee. I'm very excited to hear all about this pre-merge, post-merge, and everything else that you can give us about Survivor China. I think this will be fun.
Hey guys, hey everybody out there. Thank you for having me on. I love talking Survivor China, of course, my favorite season that I've been on out of the two. Yeah. I don't know how I survived either. I think that was probably one of the sketchiest moments. That was really the time when I didn't have a save or a fallback plan. And it honestly could have been me, and I don't know that I would have been able to stop it really, because we were kind of outnumbered. I think just they had a little bit more experience with Jamie at that point, since she had gone over and spent some time at their camp before the merge. So that might have been it. I had a feeling that they were like, oh, she's a little bit sneaky, maybe she's a little bit slippery, whatever it was, or and they just thought that she was really like sociable too. So it's, then that's kind of always a bit of a threat, I guess. So they figured we kind of know what she's about. So let's, get rid of her. Is that easier? Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, someone was saying like silent leader when describing Jamie. And I was like, oh, I guess I could see that. Did you feel like you were in trouble at all? Or did you figure that if it was going to be anyone from your side, it was going to be Jamie?
I mean, I felt like I was in trouble every day. I think most people, most Survivor players feel that anyway. There's always that kind of slight paranoia, but, yeah, I definitely thought it could have been me. The word around camp was Jamie. And, back then we had the luxury of being able to tell people when we were voting them out for the most part, because idols weren't such a big thing. Having to blindside somebody back then, you have to remember this is so long ago, and this is before idols were really a big thing. Blindsiding was considered kind of like not looked down on, but it was like kind of impolite, or like it was kind of mean. It felt really mean. You watch those old episodes and you see a lot of times people will tell someone when they want to vote them out, it's because you feel bad. They're your friends, or they're people you like, and you kind of want to be like, hey, I'm really sorry. Like, do this. I don't want, I guess this is before people were like, oh my gosh, it's big moves to do something sneaky. I don't know. Like,
well, and especially in, like, this season with James getting 2 idols, people always ask, what would be the first season you would recommend somebody watch to get into Survivor? My favorite season is China, but I always tell them to start before China, because if you start with China, then you would just assume, oh, idols have always been a thing. This was brand new. Like James's confessional in this episode where he says, that's funny, I'm on Survivor and I have 2 idols. That was the first time that had ever happened in the history of the show. So it was a unique thing. And I kind of want to talk about this. You and Jamie going through James's bag, and you find the 2 idols. Were you really thinking that like all of those were going to be idols? Or
I wasn't there. I did not know about idols until James's boot.
Really?
Wow.
Yes. I had no idea. Like, so again, you guys have to remember, idols were not like a big thing. What they had like that one random one in maybe Guatemala before that. And then I think there was one in Cook Islands.
They went 1 per season, I think. And then I think Fiji was the first season with 2 idols, but one was the idol that you played after the votes. And then the other one was you play this before the votes, which was the one that I believe Yao Man gets. So they were starting to have these idols, but I mean, it wouldn't be unrealistic to think there would be no idols on a season. They hadn't really played a huge factor on any of the seasons up to that point.
Well, and I wasn't exactly like a Survivor fan when I went on. I had seen a few episodes. I just mostly crammed a bunch of episodes before I went on. I didn't have a lot of time. So I didn't really know that idols were actually even a thing.
Wow. You masked it great.
Well, and again, back then, we didn't have all the resources that everybody has either. There was only like maybe the Survivor Sucks website back then that I barely knew about because I kind of just thought, well, maybe I should Google what this is all about. But there weren't all these podcasts or discussion groups, or if there were, I don't know, I wasn't aware of them. And so I this is so funny. I'm so glad that this never actually made air. Maybe it did, but like, I remember one day Jamie and I were sitting there. This is after James had come over, and we were just like lounging around, and she was like, "Hey," she's like, "Do you see like, that archway?" She's like, "Does it look like there's something missing from there?" And I was like, "I don't know what you're talking about." I was like, "Well, who cares? Like, whatever. Like, everything's falling apart around us. Like, I don't know." She was like, "Look, doesn't it? Like the wood is maybe like it's like unpainted, or it's just whatever. It looks like there was something covering it." And I was just like, why? Stop. Like, why are you bothering me? Like, who cares? Let's, I'm like, can we get back to like talking about this other business? And so she definitely kind of knew something was going on. I had no clue, like no idea that idols were a thing. And I'm, and I didn't know. I'd never been kidnapped. Like, I didn't know that there were clues or anything like that.
Oh yeah, that's a big thing too, because Jamie had been kidnapped, so she, like, it makes sense that Todd and all of them knew that she knew about the idols, whereas with you and Eric, they didn't necessarily know. Obviously, they know Frosty because in the episode before, Frosty finds the idol with them, and that's a huge moment because maybe Frosty wouldn't have known either. But I do think it's interesting, like you talking about how there were, you could tell people they were going home. This was the first season. If you really did that, like Jamie could have had a real idol. It was like Todd and James knew where the real idols were, but she could have found that before them with the idol clues. And that would have been a pretty great blindside.
Yeah, that's well. And Todd did say that that's why he gave one to James. He told him where to find it on art camp, but he said in case it had been found before he went back over, that's why he gave him his, right? And it does remind me that I remember that was kind of, I think, one of the reasons why Todd wanted to vote Jamie at first was because, yes, he knew that she had probably gotten the clue from Leslie when Leslie was kidnapped and came over to our side. So he kind of thought, well, Jamie might have it or whatever. She's the one that knows about it. Let's just kind of get rid of her and tie up some loose ends there.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. So what was your relationship like with James? Because in you and Jamie, I wanted to have you on for the challenge throw episode. I know we couldn't make that work, so we got you here, but I want to talk about that challenge throw because you and Jamie have the best challenge throw in the history of the show because it works and it makes total sense, and Survivor totally deserved it for doing the swap and the twist the way they did it. They deserve to have teams battling to lose. But then you're in this episode saying that you trust James and you think you can move forward with James. What did you actually believe that, or was that like, hey, cameras, like I got to give you something? What was going on with James?
This was such a comedy of errors, and it somehow, like, we somehow bungled our way through it, not working, but at least, whatever. It helped me stick around a little bit longer. So, yeah, we threw the challenge, and at that point, we'd been losing everything, and it was such a difficult decision because I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how I'm going to help my team. I don't know how I'm going to help myself. We're not winning anything. And then, I was like, do I really want to keep losing on purpose? But now it kind of seems like there's a reason. And I might not have done it. But like, when Aaron and James had come over, talking to Aaron, he was giving me really like just bad vibes. Not bad. He was giving me like these like really kind of slightly smarmy car salesman vibes.
Gotcha.
Right. Like, like, hey guys, great to meet you. Love being here. And I'm like, okay, like, and then he started selling out. He started like kind of selling out his old team right away, but then not really telling us anything like solid. Like I was like, well, what are the alliances? Who's tight with you? And he wouldn't tell me any of that, but he was just like, oh yeah, I didn't like them. He was trashing them without giving me any info. So I was like, okay, like that is super sketchy. Like I'm not going to trust him if he's going to turn on them so fast. Like, why would I trust him to have my back? I don't know, whatever. It just seemed really fake to me. And then, like talking to James, I felt like James and I actually got along really well. And he was telling me everything. Like he was telling me like, oh yeah, like me and Denise are tight. Like he's like, I don't think me and Denise are not really aligned with anyone else. Todd and Amanda, whatever. He was just kind of spilling like all the beans and telling me stuff. And so that's kind of why eventually I was like, I kind of feel like I trust James and I kept him over. I wanted to keep him over Aaron. I just didn't think that we were going to be a cohesive thing. So that was a tough decision to throw the challenge. Like,
I mean, the best line of the season is when you tell Jeff that you're good at Sudoku. That is the funniest thing. The best part of that episode, best part of the season.
I still don't get why people thought that was so funny. Like,
I think it's hilarious.
The deep
it's just like
focus
such a
of
slap to him.
challenge. Yeah, and you're just like, no, I'm not even paying attention. I don't care what's going on.
I'm cracking jokes. What about me? What of me?
Yeah. And so I want to. So back then, and you said it. It was only Survivor Sucks. If Reddit existed, you would have been the most polarizing woman in the world. And I still think you were incredibly polarizing at the time because people either loved you or they hated you. You turned James into a fan favorite. It is you and Jamie made that happen because you put him in such an underdog role that America just fell in love with him. And he thanks you for the $200,000 you got him for the fan favorites he won. But
he would have been that way anyway. Literally the minute I met James and he came over and I was like, he has such a dynamic, interesting personality, like so complex, so fun. He's really funny. He's like this big buff looking dude, and he is really guy, like the stereotypical dude, right? Like, plays football, he's buff, he likes chicks, but then on the other hand, he loves cooking. He had us all calling him like Mama James. He loves
where was that? Oh,
he loves soap operas. Like, it's
the gravedigger who loves soap operas. I just want everybody to understand.
Beautiful.
He would bitch all the time. He's like, I'm missing my stores right now. He would tell me, he was like, so who knows, like so and so's pregnant by this guy, and he's like, I'm trying to find out who the father. He's like, I'm missing all of this on like As the World Turns or something like that. I don't know. So I knew the minute I met him, actually, I was like, if there is an All Stars, I was like, you will come back 100%. Like,
good call.
Called that twice.
Yeah.
The vibe I got from him right away. The other thing I thought was funny was, it's so funny that you were like, you called me polarizing, because I remember when I auditioned for Survivor, and you go into this big meeting room with like all the big wigs from CBS, everyone's, they're intimidating in suits, and they ask you all these crazy questions and throw you off your game. And I just remember one of the last questions they asked me, they were like, well, why should we cast you? And I was like, I think people will either really, really love me or really hate me. Like, I kind of knew I was going to have personalities. And I was like, but either way, they will be talking about me at the water coolers the next day. And that's what I
Good answer.
them when I left the audition.
And it was spot on because kind of the point I was going to make there was, at the time, I couldn't stand you. I was like, what? I hate you. You're a monster. You threw the challenge to get rid of Aaron, who did nothing. But now that I've talked about the game so much and I've rewatched it makes the season, because that also signals to production. I think it stops them on this dangerous trend of kind of rigging the game too much. I'm not saying they didn't rig it, but it was a bad twist that was easily riggable, if that's a word. And it kind of stopped them on that train, because you can't just be like, hey, take the two strongest people so you can vote them out because they're going to be in the minority. Like, that is insane. But
right.
I just like, if I don't know what the reaction was like for you, and I don't know how you actually felt, but I do think that you were so polarizing at a time when like social media and stuff didn't exist, that's probably why we didn't see you for so long. I think if social media had existed at the time, there's no way they would have been able to do season 20 without you, because people would have been so angry with you for throwing the challenge to get rid of James or to get rid of Aaron.
I was, to be honest, I was really shocked at how upset people were. Like, I thought this was this super, like, kind of fun, clever thing. Like, you're using your wits instead of your brawn, whatever. You know what I mean? And people were just furious. Like, James called me that week that it aired, and he was like, "Gah." He was like, he's like, for your own safety, do not step foot in Louisiana. he was like, my mail lady. He was like, she been delivering my mail. He's like, I have never talked to her in my life. He's like, she came up and knocked on my door and was like, if I see that, I'm gonna kick her ass. I could not believe the reaction. And it might be, you know what? I hate this. I'm like, I don't know if it comes from like being like Chinese. Like, it's, I come from a culture where this type of like trickery is actually always prized. A lot of our mythology and our old folk stories, a lot of them are tales about gods or humans that are revered because of this kind of trickery. In fact, if you look at the Chinese zodiac, I think it goes mouse and then ox. Like, you know how like there's like a kind of like a hierarchy of who comes first in the Chinese zodiac. The mouse is ahead of the ox, and the story is that he was like, hey, you know, Mr. Ox, you're so strong and I'm so small. Can you give me a ride? He's like, sure, hop on. So the mouse hops on the ox, and just as they're at the finish line, it's like a race. At the last second, he like runs to the end of his nose and jumps off and somehow wins because he like jumped off ahead of him. And that's, and that's how the mouse ended winning. So like, it's like these little like clever, tricky things. Like,
it sounds like those don't apply to Louisiana male women, however.
and I do think though, if this had happened in season 35 or season 30 or even season 25, it would have been viewed so much differently than it was in season 15. In season 15, it was so ahead of the game. And because you were getting rid of somebody everybody really liked. This wasn't like when in Pearl Islands, when they throw the challenge to get rid of Burton and Rupert's like mad about it, but at least we have hero Rupert, who was like kind of a part of it, and it takes out somebody that was against the hero and all that. Like, you and Jamie were the villain here. Like, you were going up against James and Aaron, who were carrying Fei Long to the finish line, and we're going to win this game. And look, I think it needs respect. I always say it's the best challenge show in the history of the show, but it's funny that it took you then 16 seasons to play again. And I don't know if that had something to do with it, or if it's just, what they decided to go with for the the all-star seasons and the somewhat returning seasons. But I think that's interesting, because if that played in season 34, people would be begging for you to look at what Angelina, look at the reaction she gets. She never threw a challenge like that.
Angelina is just like one of the best villains
of all time.
Didn't even want to be. That was the best part.
She's so much like that in person too. She's just like this larger than life personality. She's awesome. I mean, it's so bizarre to think about these challenge throws and the reception that it got. Yeah.
It is. It's crazy.
So with James, you said that you'd felt a connection with him. By the time it got to the merge and James did reconnect with his old tribe mates, did you still feel that? Was he able to? Did he do a good job trying to play double agent, or did you know something was up pretty quickly?
He did a fantastic job. I mean, here's the thing. James and I actually, James was one of my best friends out there. We get along really, really well. And even after the show, we were we stayed in contact. We were really close. We hung out a lot afterwards. And he even, so I don't know how true this is, because I look at the edit and I don't know if it supports it, but he had told me after we were done filming, he said that right after the merge, he actually would have jumped over and joined us, because he said he really didn't have any ties with Todd and Amanda and Courtney. He was willing to bring Denise, and I was like, this is amazing. And what he had told me was, he said, I needed to make sure that you guys had the numbers, and you told me that Frosty was on your side. He's like, you told me Sharia was still on your side. He said, you promised me Frosty would still be with you guys. And so, when we had the merge, the day of the merge, him and Frosty went out on the little fishing boat, and we're we're going to catch some fish, but they were talking and I was not there. And basically James was like, hey, are you still with, your buddies at Jean Hu? And Frosty was like, this guy's testing me. He's testing my loyalty. He was like, no, I'm 100% I'm Fei Long all the way. And James was like, well, if you're Fei Long, then I guess I'm still Fei Long also. And so they came back, and that was pretty much it. And I didn't really know about this until later. You know what I mean? So I kind of wish I had been there and kind of gotten three of us talking or whatever. Maybe things would have been different. I don't know. This is what James is telling me. I don't know if this is him just telling me something after the fact, or what. The whole time he kept kind of saying maybe I'll be with you. Denise was like, maybe I'll be with you, because again, I said, I kind of knew right away from the minute we merged. I knew that it was going to be Todd, Courtney, and Amanda together. And I was like, okay, these two guys are just kind of floating along. Maybe there could be, I don't know, something to be done there.
So you didn't see like the Courtney division here, or was it played up for TV to put drama around the fact that Jean Robert is going to go home very soon? Because it seems like if you guys would have said, "Hey, Courtney, we'll vote Jean Robert," she would have been like, "Great, I'm a Jean Hugh. You are my family. I love all of you." It seems like it was that easy to flip her. Was it? Was that fabricated for TV?
You know what? I really didn't know. Those 3 days go by so quickly. I voted for Jean Robert that, yes. So I had voted for Jean Robert, and I don't remember who it was. Somebody had told me that they were like, maybe she'll flip. They were like, she doesn't like Jean Robert. So like, that's, if we want any chance, like maybe that's it. So I didn't really know how likely it was, but that was really, when you think that's your only crack, you're just going to kind of go for it. Just be like, well, hey, there's a bunch of us. We're all voting Jean Robert. So here's your chance. If you want to get rid of him, there's already like, I don't know, like 3 votes going there.
Yeah. No. And that was always the move. He was, Jean Robert is a character. That's all I got.
Was there anyone from the Fei Long tribe who you, in the period of time that you were with them, that you felt like you connected with pretty well, even if just from a personal level?
You mean at the merge episode, or?
Yeah, at the merge.
So like, other than James, was there anybody else you felt like you had a shot with?
I did actually get along with Jean Robert.
Okay.
I'm like the only person that got along. I got along really well with James. I got along really well with Jean Robert, but because these are these kind of big contentious guys, and all of my friends at the time were these like douchebag guys. like those were all of like my best friends were these like loudmouth braggart douchebag guys. So I'm like, I know how to deal with guys like this.
These are my people.
Yes, like I got along with them really, really well. And I remember there's one small scene where Jean Robert, and no one else probably remembers this, but I do, just because it's about me. But Jean Robert was like, we got to vote out Peih-Gee. And they were like, why? He was like, she came over and she started, putting her head on my shoulder. And like, he was like, this girl's kind of cool. Like, I kind of like her. He was like, we got to vote her out because she's going to like start growing on me and like, she's going to break us up. And I just remember him saying that. And I did remember that I did kind of like this is probably the one, you guys are gonna laugh, the one time in my Survivor career that I feel like I kind of flirted with somebody was Jean Robert.
Wow, you heard it here first, people.
And how many people did you have to push out of the way to be able to do that? There was probably a line out the door, right?
Jean Robert was probably like, normally I gotta like brush these chicks off. I would swap them off with a fly swatter.
Gotta vote her out.
Like, nobody's lining up this time. Where are they?
Where'd they all go?
It's so funny. And again, I guess it goes like, because I kind of like know you and I've seen you out in LA and stuff. So like, I know kind of who you hang out with around LA. Thinking I'm not calling any of these people douchey or braggarts, but it's a mostly male group from like what I see. So it's not surprising to me that you got along with Jean Robert and James and all of that. But it's just funny to me that you say that, because like, I mean, we had Sharia and Leslie on, and they said their nicey nices about Jean Robert, and it seems like everybody on the season said their nicey nices when they needed to. But it seems like you're the first one who's like, no, Jean Robert wasn't bad. I like Jean Robert.
Oh, well, I thought you said everyone was saying nice things about him.
Well, they were playing nice. I feel like I don't feel like it didn't feel as sincere as like no,
I don't like him,
but. Yeah.
Oh no, Jean Robert and James are assholes. Like they're like douchebag assholes. But I like douchebag assholes.
Yeah.
Sounds like it was a perfect pairing.
But I like loose cannons. You have to remember, my favorite player before actually playing with them was Abby Maria. I like these people with these lunatic personalities, and like I can kind of I find them really entertaining. You know what I mean? Like, and I get along with them, and I think they like it because they can tell that I actually do find their stories genuinely entertaining. So like I get along with those kinds of guys.
Yeah, and it's funny because James is played up as a hero, and I always love Monday morning quarterbacking old school Survivor, because some of the stuff they say, I'm like, that's a hero, that's a hero, that's a hero, when it's blatantly villainous. But Courtney does say in Heroes versus Villains, I always knew you should have been on the villain tribe, James. And you see it in China. Like there's one part where in this episode where he calls Courtney a skinny little bitch who's going to ruin their game. And I'm like, wow. There you go.
Yeah. He says something else like right before they go to vote. He's like, I hope she doesn't F it up again. It's like, oh, well, know where you stand.
Yeah.
He was convinced the whole season that he was barely gonna make the edit because he was like, "No, I cuss too much." Like he was like, "I'm probably not even gonna be on here because they're just gonna have too much of a job trying to censor me." Like, and I mean, he told me some stories that would like raise the hairs on your head. And look, and that's just not me putting him down because again, I like people with crazy life stories. Like, but I'm like, they're not fit for public consumption. I can tell you that much. But that's so for me, I thought he was just such a complex, multi-layered person. And I kind of wish they had shown these other parts of him because to me it makes him more interesting. Obviously, America gets really conflicted. They don't like a dose of evil villain with their heroes,
Right.
You got to be one note, otherwise they don't like it. We have Ian Dean who says, "So good to see Peih-Gee." That's a positive. Thank you, Ian. And then Luis,
thank you.
Luis Lexi asks or says, "Best podcast. I have a question for Peih-Gee. Why didn't Todd know he won? In newer seasons, the jury usually tells the person that they won or they ask. Did he know or did he not know?"
Todd told me later that he was convinced that Courtney had won.
Wow.
In that alternate universe, I'm very happy.
I love that old school feel of he didn't know. Like, it's so obvious. You see the look on his face.
We didn't even have each other's numbers, really. You have to remember, this is before Twitter. There was no Twitter. There was no
Thank
Instagram.
Heavens.
2007. So, like, you know what? I had a MySpace. Okay.
Did you MySpace friend someone?
Yes, I tried to. I didn't. You know that Jamie Dugan, well, Jamie Huffman now, is who told me about Facebook. I didn't even know what Facebook was, and back then
hilarious.
It was only for like college kids, like because it was really designed at first for people. You had to have a .edu like email to even join Facebook. And so she was like, "Oh, it's so cool," and she was telling me about all the features, and she was like, "Yeah, you should join it." I'm like, okay,
you can poke people on it.
Was that when the was still in front of Facebook? Was it still the Facebook back then? Yeah.
Yes, it was only on like Harvard. You had to have like a harvard.edu. I don't. Who knows?
Did James have a MySpace?
Of course, it probably had like the top 8, and like you got to personalize the song that played when someone came to your front page. But so like we didn't really have. I don't know how eventually we got each other's like phone numbers. But who knows? Probably back then there was probably even like you had to pay for long distance to call someone out of state. Who knows? Like
my grandpa still asks me if I have unlimited minutes. I'm like, it's 2020. Like, come on. Like, I can do this phone call. It's okay. We're in the US. We're okay.
It was so hard to get a hold of each other. I was determined. I really didn't want to tell them who I voted for. Like I had told the people on the jury, but even then, half of the time we were like, "No, don't say," because we wanted to be a surprise, whatever. And I honestly really didn't know. Like it was kind of up in the air. Like a few people, I had no idea like how they voted. I kind of knew. I knew Todd had some votes. So that was really all I knew going in.
And why did you ultimately end up voting for Todd? What made Todd stand out over Courtney and Amanda to you?
Well, I knew Todd was going to win from the minute we had the merge episode. Like
Gotcha.
pretty much
Really?
I would say right afterwards, like, I mean, that's why I constantly was targeting him. I was like, if you guys don't vote him out, he's going to win. I was like, why does nobody else see this? And you'll see, like, I consistently vote for him. He's the one person I'm constantly trying to vote out the whole game. And I was like I felt like I was taking crazy pills. I was like, why is nobody else seeing this? And everyone was like, no, like, everyone thinks Todd is bad. I'm like, nobody thinks he's bad. Like we all think he's gonna win. Like, so I felt like I knew it from the day one. I mean, it's just, when you see someone consistently kind of boast about how good they are, but then they actually kind of follow up in a ways. So he's like, I know this game inside and out. And he would tell us, he was like, oh, what day are we on? This is day so-and-so. He's like, this is what should be happening next. This is what will, he would sit there and analyze it. And he spent hours with me talking about what I had done, what he had done, about other seasons. Like, so just kind of really like, hey, I know this game inside and out. I'm not here by accident. I have a plan and a strategy. He told me this. And, he was like, I really like you. This is really good, like kind of like a social strategy. He was like, I really like you, PG. He's like, but obviously you do know already that I have my alliance, so I'm gonna be honest with you. I can't take you all the way to the end, but he was like, I'll try to get you as far as I can. And he, even if he did or didn't, it's like one of those things that I still remember him saying. And he, who knows, he probably didn't even mean, I don't know if he meant it or not, but it was a nice thing to hear. No one else is saying this to me, right? Like, so he was just so good at even those little things.
Todd had a really good tendency, like especially with rewatching this, a really good tendency of being very honest, if not brutally honest. Like the conversation, this is the episode where Courtney is like, hey guys, you're not defending me. Jean Robert is the worst. And you guys are still being in alliance with him. And Todd like doesn't really back down. And it's a little hard to watch, but I feel like he maybe gets some respect from Courtney in a way. It's really interesting to see him do that, because I think in present day Survivor he would have gotten voted out immediately.
He was like, Jean Robert is one of my numbers, bitch. Like, I need him around.
I need him. I need his vote. And then he says, deal with it, bitch, in a confessional. And it's the first time you get like nasty Todd.
And that's what you needed. You needed or not needed, but that's how the game worked. And I think Todd was seeing that. And I think a lot of other people on the season saw that, but it's just funny how like Todd was like, no, this is my plan. And everybody else is just going to have to deal with it, because if you want to align with me, this is what you're going to do. I am not giving up my numbers. And then obviously we see what happens in the next episode, but he was calculating it kind of the way that Tina and Colby did back in Australia, where it was, all right, we can get it at 5. We have 5-3. Let's get rid of Jerry. Now we can get rid of her because it's still 4-3 and we're still okay. And that's very calculating. And he also knows that he has 2 idols on his side, and he's got the strongest guy who's probably going to win some immunities. Like, he knows that this one vote for Jamie ultimately was going to propel him to at least the final 5. He knew that it had that much of an impact on it. And Courtney, I mean, she's very open that she was recruited and that she was in a restaurant and she was yelling at somebody. She probably wasn't looking at it really from a game sense. She was just like, Jean Robert sucks and I want him away from me, which makes sense. I get it.
Which is fair.
Yeah.
Except for you.
I remember him saying too, like, he's like, I need to keep Courtney because she's his shield on like somebody weaker than him, right? So like he needed to keep her around. He needed to keep around one person that was like stronger than him, which is why he had Amanda. Like that's why he ended up having Amanda and Courtney as his 2 like endgame alliance mates.
Which is amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you and Jean Robert though could have changed. I'm gonna go back to this final vote real quick, because I know we're supposed to be talking about episode 6, but it's the merge. It's not a boring merge, but it is one of those merges where it's like we kind of know it's Jamie or you or Eric or Frosty going at this merge, and the only excitement really is Jamie playing the fake idol, which satisfied millions of Americans who were so mad at you and her for throwing that challenge. It was finally like, okay, we got the satisfaction. But in this episode, Jean Robert talks about how if Todd screws him over, he will never vote for him to win. He will never get his vote. He will blame him because he's smarter than Amanda. He's smarter than Courtney and all of that. Jean Robert ends up voting for Todd. So do you. So you and Jean Robert, who kind of had a little like alliance going on a little bit, could have possibly actually changed to Courtney. What do you think really set, and we hear all the stories like at the finale and all of that, but what was going through your mind that you think at Ponderosa, because I don't think we were getting Ponderosa videos yet, what sets it up for you and Jean Robert to ultimately go with Todd over Courtney?
Well, I knew I was always going to vote for Todd to win. I mean, obviously, I was like, this guy is so good at this game. If you don't vote him out, he's going to win. So, like, if I feel like he is my biggest competitor, why would I not vote for him to win? Right? If it's about who you're going to vote for, who you think most deserves it. Like, clearly, I thought he deserved. Like, I was like, this guy deserves to win so much. You need to get rid of him now. Like, So I kind of always knew I was going to vote for Todd. My biggest thing was like towards the very end of the game, I became pretty close to Amanda, and I was like, oh, Amanda's doing a lot more than I realized. And ultimately I was like, well, one person is doing their work openly, the other one, maybe they're doing it behind their back. She's kind of insinuating to me that she has done it. She's pulled all the strings that I haven't seen. The problem is I haven't seen it. So there's always that managing the threat level. She managed her threat level really, really well. It got her all the way to the end. But did she manage it? Did she cover it up too much? And it's not enough to make people feel like she deserved to win, right? It's that fine balancing line of how much do you want to claim responsibility for your actions. But
some might argue she did that twice in a row. I mean,
1000% she did, and Jean Robert, I mean, come on, Todd played Jean Robert like a fiddle. He knew exactly which strings to pluck, like, to get this reaction, and it totally worked. Like, he was Jean Robert was like really easy to manipulate.
Don't tell him he was outsmarting all of you. He was outsmarting everybody out there. Don't let him fool you. So now that we brought up Ponderosa, I'm kind of curious. What was Ponderosa like for China? Because we get to see it now, and now it's like this big produced thing. But what was it like back in Survivor China when you're getting there, and you were one of the last people to show up? So, you kind of already saw the dynamics. How was that?
I was only on there for a few nights, but I partied my ass off the night that I got put out.
Of course you had to.
It was, I thought that's what everyone did. I was up till 4 a.m. I was eating and drinking. I used to smoke back then. I was smoking, I was just being like a maniac, I was 29.
Did anyone at least stay up with you, or were you doing this like alone?
Oh yeah.
Oh good. Yeah. Okay. Like, they left you?
Well, no, but like, I mean, I'm like, I don't care. It's been so many years later. I met like one of the love of my life that night, who was on part of the medical team.
Okay.
Survivor China. He does not do that kind of work anymore, so I guess I can talk about it. It's usually a big no-no. But like, he's one of those people that stayed up, and so did James. And we all just sat around for a while. That same night, I remember, I will tell you guys a funny story. So I was sitting there at the end of the night at Ponderosa. It's like, I don't know, 2 a.m. or something. And it's just me, this doctor guy that was kind of flirting with me all night. And then also James, who was kind of flirting with me all night. So we're all just like, the three of us are just kind of sitting there. And I'm like, there's like this weird tension. I'm like, what is happening here? But we're just kind of hanging out. It's like 2 a.m. So it's like, somebody just gonna like call it quits and go to bed. Anyway, at that point, James finally is like, all right, I'm going to bed, guys. And I'm like, all right, well, I guess like, you bitched out first. So then I'm alone with this doctor guy. And whatever, we're just sitting there. It's like literally the first time we kind of had alone for like 5-10 minutes. Jamie comes stumbling in, and I'm like, what? And she was like, and she sits down like literally like in between us, and she was like, you guys, I like Eric so much. She's like, I just don't know what to do, because like, she's like, I never dated a guy like him before. She's like, he's such a nice guy. She's like, he literally walked me to my cabin now and just kind of gave me a hug and sent me on my way. And she's like, I really want him to kiss me. I don't know. I've never made the first move before, because she is like a Southern, like a nice, sweet Southern girl, She's like, I don't make the first move. And so this was like another half hour of like, go knock at his door. Just you're going to have to take the first move on this. And so but I just thought it was such a cute story, from kind of, I guess, their courtship also started at Ponderosa. And I will just say this, as long as we're on the subject, I recently had a small reunion, like a China reunion during this whole COVID thing. I think Leslie kind of arranged it, and it was to benefit like Give Kids the World. So much of us got together. And so somebody had asked them about the first time, like they really kind of fell for each other. And I remember Eric saying that he really fell for Jamie when, I guess, the first day she walked out after she had been voted out, and she came in as the first member of the jury. He's like, this is, he's like, I got to know her, like, whatever, on the show. But then she walked out just, all clean and pretty. And he's like, my heart stopped when I saw her walk in. And he said that was the moment. Like, he said that was the moment when he realized how much he'd missed having her out there and seeing her walk in all like clean and pretty, and how he just really realized like how much he really, really liked her. So I just,
those cuts of like the first time someone comes in on the jury and they're super hot and everyone's like, oh man, I love that. Like, that actually resulted in a wedding. So love that.
Isn't that cute?
I also,
it's really sweet.
Survivor, this is probably why Ponderosa started in Micronesia, because they realized in China that they really messed up. Because it sounds like you guys had like a whole real world Big Brother thing going on at the Ponderosa for Survivor China, and we got screwed. I would have loved to have watched you and James just pounding drinks while Jamie and Eric are flirting over each other, and John Robert's off grumping around in the corner. Like, this would have been amazing.
James and I were flirting too. Like, but and it would have been fun. I mean, that first night, like, and it's funny because afterwards everyone was like, I don't know how you did. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, isn't every night like this? Because I was like, Ponderosa's amazing. Like, this is party every night. They were like, this is the first party we've had. It was when you got, and they were like, every night before that, like the first person voted off usually eats and then just goes to bed. Like they eat and then they shower and they just need like alone time. They they want some alone time. They want to sleep, whatever. And they're like, yeah, it's been pretty quiet and chill mostly.
It's the LA way. You were from LA. I mean, that's what everybody does out here. Everybody goes out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Obviously not in the last couple months, but that's what people do out here. So I get it.
A maniac. Well, I mean, I will say, like, probably my favorite thing that I've gotten out of Survivor is just all the amazing people that I've met. Like, that was, I genuinely, when I was out there, even though I hated them, I loved everybody. Like, I think Survivor just picks the most interesting people, fascinating people. And I just felt so, I hate to say blessed, but like so lucky, I guess, that I got to meet all these cool people that would like really interesting personalities that I never would have come across in a million years. Like some Southern blonde frat chick from, South Carolina. Like, who would have known we'd still be friends to this day or whatever. Like, yeah.
Do you still keep in touch with most of the cast?
I would say I'm friendly with most of them. It's just unfortunate that back then we didn't really have a chance to become as close as the cast now, mainly because the communication issue, back then, like there wasn't like group texts or even Facebook or, you can't follow each other. So like, it's hard. You kind of fall out of each other's lives a bit, but I will say like, for a while, I was really, really good friends with Amanda. We actually lived together for a couple years.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, back in like right before. Was this right after she had done Micronesia?
Okay.
So she had just come back from Micronesia, I think. And yes, because that was when she was dating Ozzy and they were over all the time. And so, yeah, so like Amanda and I were really close. I think like she invited me to her wedding. I couldn't make it because I had just come back from Cambodia.
Okay.
When she got married. She ended up marrying her high school sweetheart. So that was really adorable. Like their wedding invitation was their high school prom photo.
Oh my gosh. I love that.
It was really, really cute. Yeah. I'm really close to Todd now. I actually designed his engagement rings, his wedding rings. So I'm I'm probably the closest to Todd like currently out of everybody. Like we talk on the phone and but I'm still friendly with like Frosty, Sharia, Jamie, Eric, those guys, Leslie. Yeah.
So I get this kind of ties into that, but also I want to go backwards a little bit. How was playing with Dave?
Oh my gosh, Dave was the worst. What did Sharia have to say about him?
It lined up with what was on the show.
Yeah, that's really all she said. She kept it kind of at that.
These guys are so polite. Like
they haven't played a second time though. They don't want to be all vicious and stuff. But everybody who plays a second time, I feel like that's when the gloves come off. Once they come back the second time, they're like, I can just talk about whoever I want, whenever I want now. So
Dave has disappeared off the face of this planet. Like you can talk shit about him, it's okay.
He's actually one of our biggest fans. He's our biggest watcher, Dave. Yeah.
huge donor to the podcast.
Yeah.
I would love anybody to track this person down. He has disappeared. Like I don't know. I've not seen hide nor hair of him. Even at the reunion, I remember, because we all stay at like a hotel for the reunion and everyone's hanging out. And I kind of remember him kind of like literally like sneaking past, like tiptoeing past when he checked in. And then that was it. And like, he like kind of ran away and didn't even want to talk to anybody. Like, I don't know. I guess he kind of knew everyone hated him. he was so annoying. Like the worst, most annoying person to live with on the face of the planet.
Why did you all keep him around so long? Why Chicken and Ashley before Dave?
Was he that helpful?
He was actually useful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I found Ashley intensely irritating and useless. Mm-hmm. Dave was only irritating, but at least not useless.
Okay. That's a compliment. There you go, Dave.
There is like a hierarchy of, of irritation and uselessness. And, and the thing was with Chicken was like a weird vote because I would not have wanted to vote him out first. I would have rather voted out Ashley first. Mm-hmm. But Ashley kind of was like friendly with Sharia and Jamie, who I was trying to ingratiate with. Mm-hmm. So they didn't want to vote Ashley out. They liked her. So, okay. Chicken seems like he's really useful at setting up camp, except he wouldn't do he didn't help us with it. I mean, he helped like physically, but I was like, can you tell me what to do? Because I'm like, your first few days out there are just pure panic. Yeah. You have no idea what you've gotten yourself into. You're like, you're looking at the prospect of sleeping on a muddy, gross, dirty, rainy ground with bugs everywhere. You want some semblance of order, control. Somebody's in charge. Somebody knows what they're doing to keep you alive through this. And he really seemed like our best bet. And he was like, well, I'm not here to lead. I'm not here to be a leader. I don't want to, just you tell me what to do. And I'm like, me tell you what to do? I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
You're the farmer from Virginia. What are you doing?
Help me, and he just wouldn't. And so I was like, okay, and the first vote is always one of those things where, especially these older seasons, and especially with people who are not like self-professed super fans or whatever, you're just kind of like, somebody throws out a name, it's not you, everybody else jumps on it,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so kind of going off the topic of China, but were you asked to come back prior to Second Chances, or was that the first time that you were asked?
Well, ask is like a weird thing. So like I have been contacted for a bunch of other seasons. Micronesia, I sent in a whole application. I sent in a whole thing. Like I went pretty far in the process for Micronesia, I would say. I know Courtney was asked and said no. I was asked and I said yes. And then I think Amanda was actually asked just after I was, and I have a feeling she was kind of more like, like when she said yes, then they put her on. So that was Micronesia. And then did I get contacted for Hero? I did not get contacted for Heroes versus Villains. After that, I think the next one after that was after the first Blood versus Water. And they thought about doing another Blood versus Water. So I sent in a tape for that with my sister. Okay. And then they decided to go in a different direction for that altogether. And then Second Chances was the one after that.
Yeah. No, I'm always just interested to hear who was asked and who wasn't. And by the time Heroes Villains came around, they probably couldn't ask you, because then the 3 degrees of separation from James and Amanda, every single person on the cast would have played with James and Amanda. So it's so difficult. Like, it's tough because the position you were in, season 16 has 2 players from China. Season 20 has 3 players from China, and 3 or 4 players from Micronesia. Like, there's so many players from all the seasons that you would have just been connected to, that it's like, it sucks that James and Amanda were so damn popular. Look at what they did.
And oh geez, oh my god, I just broke my computer.
Oh no.
No, it's fine. It's one of those pull out. Okay, there we go. It's one of those things where the keyboard is like on this little pull out slidey thing. And I broke it once, and now it's like prone to fall if I lean on it.
More breaks.
I know. Okay, I'm just not going to lean on it. I think one of the other things is probably what you had said before about how polarizing I was, right? So it's funny because I would read online, of course, all these polls or whatever, people's commentary, and it's like half of the people can't decide if I am in fact a hero or a villain. Yeah. Like, half the people are like convinced I'm a total villain. The other half are like, no, she's like underdog. Underdogs by definition are usually heroic. Like, I don't know. Like, So that was probably it too, is that it just didn't really fit neatly into their theme.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Yeah, I just always like to ask, and then obviously with second chances, it was good to see that they actually remembered you for second chances, because I was concerned that all the old school players were just going to be absolutely forgotten. So it was good to see that they remembered you and got you on the show, because I mean, I found it exciting to be, even though you're only out there for a couple days, I liked you and Terry and Savage and all those old school Kimmy, Varner. Like, it's fun to see old school players try to play the new school game. I just always find that good. So,
do you have a favorite archetype of player? Like, who do you tend to root for?
Alexa, who do I tend to root for?
I don't really know.
I don't feel like I have an archetype. I've fallen into this like I don't know. Everybody in the chat will probably be like, "Oh, you go for like the young hot girl," but then again, like,
no, that's who you pick for the winner.
That's who I normally pick for the winner. Like in terms of like my favorite players, like I love Todd, but I also love James and Courtney. So like I love Eric Reichenbach. I love Russell. I think Russell's great. Like, so I don't know. I think I'm like kind of all over the map. I just like people who like do stuff. That's why, like,
big moves.
Well, not even big moves. Not even big moves, because big moves is stupid. Now, big moves, like War Dog voting out Wentworth, is the stupidest move in the history of Survivor, and you can tell War Dog I said that. It's a dumb move. It doesn't make any sense. But, like, other than that, like, when you're not just making a big move to make a big move, but, like, Todd voting out James with 2 idols, like, whoa, you know what I mean? Like, that's one of those where you're like, this guy was thinking that far ahead and was like really like, I'm not going to be like one of those people who's defending Chelsea from Ghost Island all over Survivor Reddit because she didn't get a big enough of an edit. It's like, no, she didn't do anything. Like, I just don't have anything there. So I don't know. I'm kind of all over the map. I did have you though. If you were wondering, and I know you were really concerned, I had you as my 96th best player of all time. So I don't know if that makes you feel good or bad, but that's where I had it.
Yeah, she's about to log off after that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if I was considered. You know what? I'm glad to even make the top 100. That's fine.
There you go. You were right ahead of Amber Mariano and right behind Taj George. So that tells you where I had you.
That's interesting. Taj is
Amber,
great.
who won.
Correct.
Yeah. Not her first time. She didn't win her first time, and you were certainly a better player your first time than Amber was.
Well, this is this a list of your favorite players?
No, I did it based on gameplay. I did it based on like who I thought actually played the best.
So somebody who won, you considered that like there's at least like scores of people who lost that you considered better players than somebody who actually won.
Because it was her second time playing. It wasn't her first time. And I think her first time she didn't really do anything. And then her second time, because she had no target on her back, I got her through. Like I was just kind of like, whatever. Like that's how her and Rob got where they did. So yeah, there's Chris Underwood. Come on. Chris Underwood also won Survivor. Like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, yeah, he's like the 38th best player of all time. It's just not true.
Phil, I'm going to save you a little bit here. Ryan Chan, first of all, just gave us $5. Thank you so much. And then he said, Peih-Gee, I was so upset when you weren't picked for the hot pot reward. And then people didn't even know how to use the hot pot.
I know. I mean, I only had 2 chances to eat on all of China. One was the merge feast. And the second was I went on exactly 1 reward in the entire season of China, and I had to win it my damn self to go on this. And when I go on my reward, it was all vegetarian food, and I was like, this is bullshit. Like I am starving. I want meat. Like, I'm sorry, any vegetarians out there. I like vegetarian food normally, but like if I feel like I have not eaten anything in 3 weeks, I want some fucking meat, you know. And then they come back and start complaining about it. I will say that was a little bit of a strategy on their part. So they kind of saw that, like, Todd was like smart about this type of social stuff, where he was like, people obviously don't like you when you come back from a reward and start bragging about all the cool things you had on it. At least that's how he felt. Like, I like hearing about the rewards, but other people don't. So he was like, I'm going to downplay it. And in fact, a couple times when they came back from a reward where they had like, I don't know, fried chicken or whatever, they actually lied and said, oh, it was just Chinese food. It wasn't that good. It wasn't, so that was part of his strategy, was to actually downplay the reward so that people wouldn't hate him for having a reward. Right. So I do think that that's part of why they kind of came back and were like, oh, we got this, it looked like they were complaining about the hot pot and whatever, but they were mostly like trying to downplay it. But thanks, Ryan. I was very upset also. I would have liked to have gone.
And it's funny now. I mean, nobody has to downplay the rewards, because the rewards are essentially like, go sit on a different part of the sand by yourself with another person. So
and some food.
And some food. That's really all
Is
they are.
Is that
now.
what they give as rewards now?
Pretty much, yeah. They don't do anything fun anymore. I mean, I think China had some of the cooler rewards, but in the newer seasons, it's like, oh, you're gonna have a Chinese food feast, and like they literally just like go over to another part of the beach and they eat Chinese food and like sit around, and like there's like 3 people who get picked. I don't know. It's not the same. It's not as exciting.
Yeah, when the people got to sit on like a helicopter and fly somewhere. I went on a private plane. We flew to like the Shaolin Temple. I had to go to like the airport in my fucking weird Survivor rags. I had to walk through an airport in these Survivor rags.
That's insane.
Okay? Like, I was like, this is so embarrassing. Like, this is so bizarre that, for us to have been living in this weird cocoon of Survivor, where it's basically like like a giant LARP, like an RPG, where you're just like playing at being some deserted, like you're on a deserted island. I'm in these like literal rags, like pieces of somebody's, like I had pieces of Jamie's dress that I'd ripped off and tied around my waist, and I'm wearing a buff, and now suddenly I'm walking through like a modern airport with cameras and
so
like
bizarre.
This whole entourage. It's not like we showered beforehand. I know we probably we look like homeless people. I have like leaves in my hair and shit. And then like I'm on this private plane. There's like some flight attendant giving me champagne and pistachios, and I was like, what is this? Like, what is happening? It's so surreal.
So bizarre. I never even thought about you all having to go through an airport to get on those planes. Like, I never even thought about that.
I would have loved for them to show that.
That's so funny.
Oh yeah, because people were staring, and I was like, this is
another thing they could get away with back in the day, though, they could never get away with now, because if they saw a bunch of people who looked crazy, everybody would take a photo, post it on Instagram, and then CBS would be like, actually, that's the Survivor cast. And now that those people make it to whatever port. It's like what they do with The Amazing Race now. Like The Amazing Race, people like follow them around. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's so easy to get the spoilers.
It's so crazy.
I mean, that's one of the things too, and it kind of sucks because, like, say for Second Chances, our pre-jury trip, we had to go to some really, really small towns in Vietnam on our pre-jury trip, and it's mostly because she was like, "This is particularly because you guys are an all-stars cast, so some of you are very recognizable, right? Like, it's different if it's somebody that nobody's." The pre-jury trip doesn't matter as much for new cast because nobody knows who the hell these people are. But like, they were like, if you see anyone pointing a camera even in your direction, they were like, you have to look away. You have to look away. You have to hide. Crazy. You have to like, just in case some random person recognizes you in some small town in Vietnam, like, which happened. Shireen was chased through, like, not chased, but she's like, she came running over, and because her season had just aired, right?
Yeah.
So like. And she's quite recognizable with like the big hair or whatever. And she was like, I think I saw like some tourists like taking photos.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and I mean, for you and Varner, it probably wasn't as much of an issue because it had been a little bit of time. I mean, Varner, I didn't even recognize Varner when he was put on the second chance ballot. I was like, who is that man?
Yeah.
But yeah, Shireen coming right off being on TV and then it being like a big thing, like that she just got put right back onto the show and we all knew who was going out there to play. Like, yeah, they really probably had a high. That's crazy though. You also got some of the best reward or like the best seasons to go to too. Cause now everything's just Fiji, but you actually got like China and Cambodia. Like you actually got to go to places around the world and play Survivor, which nowadays it's like, hey, I would kill to play Survivor, but it's just Fiji. That's all they do.
I feel really lucky because I feel like the full experience. So China was a freshwater inland season.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is technically inland, even though we were kind of on like a lake. So it's like muddy, but then there's some kind of watery areas. It's not like, Gabon where it's totally like all bone dry or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So like, and it's freshwater, so I get to see what it's like doing Survivor in where it's like dirt and mud and freshwater, and then with Second Chances, it was actually tropical. And I remember the first time I was like, I wish I was somewhere tropical. I want ocean, I want salt water. There's so much more food, and that's true. There is actually more food in saltwater locations, but then there's a whole set of things you have to deal with saltwater. Like the sand is awful. It is everywhere all the time. It gets in everything. It's so irritating. Saltwater is so irritating, constantly on your skin, not being able to really rinse that saltwater. You know, like you don't hear, I don't know. I guess I never really thought about how that is when you come out of saltwater and you can't really rinse it off. You're just constantly covered in just this layer and it's gross. But it was kind of cool that I got to experience both types of environments with Survivor. And then I also got to experience being on the jury versus going up pre-jury and what the pre-jury trip is like. So, I got everything.
Yeah, which is the way you want to do Survivor. If you're going to do it twice, I mean, you'd want to win.
Not?
But
Winning would be nice.
Won, yes.
Yeah, you didn't win, but at least you got to experience all of it, because I feel like there's so many people who end up playing who, it's the same thing. I mean, you go home pre-merge every time, or, so you're on the pre-jury trip, or if you just make the jury every time, you never get to sit in final three. It's good to at least cover bases, right? But
yeah. Hey, Jay. Okay, I'm gonna run the screen now. Hey, Jay, the PC bowler man. Thank you for your donation. I did not know that you guys could donate on YouTube Live.
$4.99. I love that.
We found out when we were on Russell's show. Russell was getting them, and then we were like, "How are you doing that?" And then we found out you could do it.
Dropping you cash, and so we were like, "Oh, no." $4.99 is definitely the best dollar amount we've ever got.
Yeah.
He says, love Peih-Gee, robbed goddess in Cambodia by a stupid bracelet. Yes. Hope she plays again one day.
That dang bracelet.
Peih-Gee, would you go out there and play again? Would you want a third chance?
I would say, like, before even this year, my automatic answer was always yes. And I feel like, after I've been running, I'm going to promote my my stream a little bit. So I have been running these Twitch streams, which are all like all we do is play like these hidden strategy social deduction games. And after playing all these, I'm like, I don't know that I have it in me anymore to be ultra competitive. And that is really what it takes to go out there and do it. Like, you have to really want to win above everything. And in fact, I will tell you guys, I thought this was really interesting. I was talking to Jody Winchesky, who I think she was on Amazing Race, and she's now one of the casting directors for Survivor. She does casting for Survivor, for Amazing Race, for a bunch of, for all those shows, because it's the same people that cast for like Amazing Race, Survivor, and then they also do like Big Brother casting. So I was like, okay, Big Brother contestants, we know clearly what they're kind of a slightly different breed. And I'm like, Amazing Race and Survivor people to me always seem of a very similar type of personality. So I was like, but a lot of times, people will be like, oh, I auditioned for Amazing Race and they sent me to Survivor, or vice versa, whatever, right? And so I'm like, what is it about a person that makes you think this person is more suited for Survivor than for Race?
Right.
And she's like, don't be offended. And I was like, I won't be offended. But she was like, Amazing Race is usually like the smartest of all of you guys. And she was like,
I could see that.
She's like, it's not really, smart. She's like, obviously you guys are all smart. Everybody has to pass like this certain level. But she was like, there was a lot of juggling, like time management and juggling like schedules and different things like that with Amazing Race. And she goes, but the most distinguishing feature is that competitiveness. So if they sense that you are one of these ultra competitive people, they will send you to Survivor, because she's like, you have to have that. You want to win above all else. That is all that matters to you, is you want to win. And I kind of get that, because the conditions are so rough. They're so difficult. If you didn't care more about winning than anything else in life, you would quit. You would give up. You'd be like, this sucks. Like, everybody hates me. I'm miserable. I haven't eaten in 4 days. I'm starving, whatever. Like, I'm done. And we all keep going because we are just have this weird it's like ultra competitive edge. Like, I don't know, it's fucked up.
Well, and I think that makes sense because in The Amazing Race, if you're really tired of it, you can just have a really bad leg. Like you could just be like, I'm done. We're gonna have a bad leg. We're gonna go home. Like whatever. But with Survivor, like you're gonna have, if you make it to day 39, you're probably gonna have 20 bad days. Like there's gonna be so many bad days because you're starving and all that. So I feel like it does make sense because they don't want the people. They don't want a Nayanka Purple Kelly situation where people just quit back to back at a tribal count. Like they can't handle that, you know. So I think it makes the most sense. I mean, people who want to play Survivor are psychos. People who want to play Amazing Race want to travel the world. Like there's a big difference there.
Right.
I will tell you something else too. You have a partner in Amazing Race, right?
Yeah.
So, and it's not necessarily like head to head where people are really lying to you constantly. And so even knowing that you like honestly, even having that one person in this entire world that you trust and can depend on makes all the difference.
Yeah.
Like, and you can ask anyone who has not had that. And then one person, that's all you need to get through life sometimes, right? And so like a lot of times, like on Survivor, like I did not have that in China at all, like towards the end, really. I mean, I had Eric, who I was like, I trust Eric, but it's not like Eric was like my ride or die. Like, I mean, kind of, but you know, at least I whatever.
Like, because you were both about to die, so you
ride or die. we were on the same speeding train towards the cliff. We are both jointly working to keep this train from plunging off the cliff, but that, you know, it wasn't like some kind of honeymoon ride. So I think that's one of the biggest differences is you have to really be able to have that kind of like mental fortitude to face these things alone, and like as you would be on Survivor.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely. No, I think that makes total sense. And I think that that's something people kind of don't realize when they go out there. And you hear people say it all the time, especially in the older seasons. I feel like now you don't hear as much, but people are always talking about, I've never been so alone. I just wish there was some, like, that's why the family visit means so much to people. Because everybody who watches from home is always like, oh, it's like, so we've gone 30 days without seeing our parents. I haven't seen my parents since January. Like, what? But it's like, there's a difference between not seeing them and like literally not knowing if they're alive because you haven't heard from them, or they don't know if you're alive because they haven't heard from you, and you're playing some crazy game where like people have been medevaced and people have like almost died. Like, you know, there's a lot that goes into that. I mean, in your season, you have one of the more famous family visits because Todd gets the news about his sister. And I remember the conversation around a lot of it was, is he telling the truth? Should we believe him? Because Johnny Fairplay had ruined it for everybody. You know, he had really turned that into a part of the game. And knowing how well Todd knew the game, you all were like, well, you know, maybe that could be a thing. So it's just, it's very interesting. You know, just how much the family visit means to people because we're not used to being like that alone. People can be alone. You might not see your friends for a while, but there's a difference between being like alone and like these people want to kill me and also I'm starving and I hate everything.
But it's funny because you'd think that like people nowadays don't know what it's like to go days without being able to be in constant communication with somebody. Right. I mean, imagine if somebody takes away all your phones and everything for 30 days. Like, I feel like most people nowadays would lose their minds.
Well, and like, I think about like Big Brother right now. Big Brother, like what they're just ending, like now we're in a freaking pandemic. like
wild.
And they're just like getting ready to leave that to like come back to.
Is that 3 months?
It's like 3 months. Yeah, they've been out there since I think July.
It's more weird to me that people that like, so was it Canadian Big Brother or whatever, that where when they started the pandemic had not really picked up, and then when they came out, it was like full swing quarantine. Like,
I think there was one, I don't know if it was the same one, but I think it was like German Big Brother, and they were like. They were like in a hot tub, and producers were like, "You got to go! Like we've got to pull everybody out of here." Which maybe in hindsight they should have left them there, but who knows?
It's wild.
It's wild. And yeah, I just think about that with like, especially after this, I feel like now that like the next people to play Survivor on season 41, that is going to be such a bizarre experience considering over the last 7 months, what have we done except stare at our phones and stare at our laptops and like talk to each other like this. It's going to be bizarre. The next people who go out and play Survivor, it's going to be like a culture shock. It really is.
How are you guys doing during this whole quarantine?
Hanging in. I mean, I'm
fine.
You know, I mean, I'm in Southern California like you are. I think you're in Southern California, right?
Are you in LA?
Yeah. Well, I'm actually in Orange County now, but I was in LA at the beginning, but now I'm down in Orange County. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Yeah.
Are you both working from home?
I mean,
Phil, you take that one first.
I was finishing up grad school, and then I finished up grad school, and the job that I had lined up fell through. So I'm kind of just freelancing and doing like random magazine articles and stuff. So whenever I get anything, I'm excited to get it. And everything I do is from this small desk that I'm sitting at right now.
I'm in New York, and I'm working from home. We have the option to kind of go into the office, so that's something I'll do once in a while. But New York's like objectively fine. I ran away when it was really bad in the spring, but I've been back for about a month or so, and it's like all things considered, pretty fine.
I am loving being in quarantine. Is that like what?
Honestly, I love that.
No,
honesty.
I'm not getting on board with this. I'm not getting on board with
I just remember at the beginning seeing a lot of memes that were like, everyone who's like somewhat introverted doesn't have to lie about having fun with their friends anymore. Like now we can all just like happily crawl into bed and like stare at our phones and read for the rest of our lives.
I'm like strangely half and half, right? I don't know that it's that I'm introverted, but I have a lot of hobbies. I like having time to do this stuff. I also have really bad FOMO. So I think part of for me is when I feel like, oh, everyone else is going out and having a great time and partying. Like I want to go do those things. And now I'm like, well, no one's doing it. Now I'm like, I'm kind of okay just sitting at home and puttering around and working on all my different hobbies and playing my games and,
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I am going crazy. I'm gonna lose my mind. I mean, I don't know how many more of these podcasts I can do. I don't know how much longer I can talk to Alexa and pretend everything's all right. I'm losing my mind. But I mean, the way I look at it as no matter how long it goes on for, we are a day closer to the end than we were at the beginning, and that's the only way I can look at it. And so that's what gets me through all the time. That's all I can do.
I think it's hard being, honestly too, it's probably because I'm older. Like I have like probably a decade on you guys of going out almost every night, constantly, whatever, having fun partying. Like I've done a lot of that. So like, I mean, I think if I was like in my 30s, 20s, like I would definitely be losing it.
Right.
And it's funny, like I talked to my uncle who's retired and like he was telling me, he's like, oh no, it's been great. I just keep to myself. He's like, you should just ignore everything going on. I'm like, I'm in my 20s and like I like need to like get a job and like also like do something with my life. Like I'm worried about bills and don't have like, he was a teacher, so like he's got like his pension. Like I don't have that. I'm like, there's a difference here, Yeah. Like I'm a little concerned. I can't really just turn this off and be like, not today. I'll worry about it tomorrow. It's a little nerve-wracking. So I can't get on. I'm look, one day closer all the time, but at least we're watching Survivor China, which is my favorite season. And at least I've gotten to talk to, I mean, we've had 3 people on the podcast that we'd never had on before. So at least things have been kind of going well for us in that sense. And it's been fun. And
have you never had me on?
No, because I went on your Twitch, but you never came on here.
I swear I have been on this at least once.
No, we never had you on. No.
Really?
This is the first time, Peih-Gee. Welcome to the
first
podcast.
time. Welcome to the party.
How is that possible? I feel like I've done maybe the podcast, but before you guys were doing this like YouTube thing. No.
I know.
We've shocked.
Well, because Peih-Gee, like, not for nothing, and like I don't think I'm like ruining any like facade here, but like we've seen each other a lot in LA. Like we have like hung out like a lot in LA. What is it? What's the bar? I can't think of even the name of the bar now because it's been so freaking long.
Oh, I hate that bar.
Yeah, it sucks. But that bar, the bar where they always do stuff, where there's games and things
it's like
and whatever.
Favorite bar. I forgot the
name.
Well,
I won't say the name of the bar in case people after
we're
COVID
about to lose like
hang out. But that bar, I feel like I would see you there all the time, and now it's been weird. Like I haven't seen.
Did you come to my party? Did you come to my 39 party?
Yes, I did. I was there for that. Yes. So
that was my location.
Yes. Oh no, I know. No, that was great. That was phenomenal. No, but that's the weird thing is like during this whole time, like I mean, you probably thought we had just done it because I've seen you like 15 times in at these random Survivor events. I feel like whoever lives in LA, if you're like a Survivor fan or a Survivor player, you're going to see the same exact people every time you go to one of those Survivor events, plus the cast.
That's right. Bug filled. Have them make them take you to some of these events.
I would love to. Hey, if they come back, I was mad. I was ready. I was all ready to go to the Survivor season 40 finale. Like I was ready to go.
God. Could you imagine that got canceled? Like this was supposed to be.
It would have been a blast.
The party of the year. Like
I know.
all the alumni had bought tickets. They were ready to come out to LA for it. Like it was going to be like a week-long just festival.
I know. I was so excited. Carl was ready to sleep on my couch. He had booked it like 7 months in advance. He was ready to go, and it just sucked. I mean,
Godfather Carl.
Godfather Carl. Yeah, Godfather Carl stayed on my couch for 38. And then he was going to come back out again for 40. He skipped 39, and he had the couch all lined up and everything.
Because they were 37. I was
yeah.
like, don't they have hotels?
No. Yeah, for that one he stayed at the hotel, but for 38,
they give him a hotel for that one.
Yeah, no, for 38 he was on the couch, and it was fun. It was fun, and it's a bummer that season 40 didn't end up happening. But hopefully Survivor will do something. A huge Survivor coming back after this is all over. They need to do some sort of just epic bash to celebrate the fact that not only did they make it through 20 years, they also made it through a pandemic, and they're back because that's how popular they are. And they got to do something for the fans and the players and all of that, because we need a proper send off to season 40 and a proper welcome to season 41.
Do you want to see a domestic Survivor? I know Rob always talks about wanting to see Western.
I just want to see Survivor.
I don't particularly want one, but I would in this situation, I want it so badly. I'll take anything.
Yeah, I mean, do you think it would make Phil and I have been here?
Do what?
Is it why is it make a big difference for you that it's domestic?
No. At this point, no. I'm one of those people who's like, all right, I'm pretty sick of Peih-Gee, but I also don't care enough to really complain about it. But Phil and I, we've been watching The Amazing Race this season, and it's been good, and it's kind of scratched the itch, but it just makes me realize how much I miss Survivor because it's not as good.
And at this point, since every season was being filmed in Fiji, what's the difference between doing Fiji or Hawaii? What's the difference between just doing doing the big island in Hawaii and or one of the small islands that's not even named? What's the difference at this point? Just do it, or as Rob said, go to the middle of Wyoming and just plop down there. I mean,
you could go to Puerto Rico. You could
Puerto Rico, yeah.
I don't know, Guam. There's places.
Well, and that's why they did American Samoa so many seasons. They could do American Samoa too. I just think that there's so many options. And at this point, the least important thing about Survivor in season 41 is the location. It doesn't matter. Right. And it just get 16 to 20 people and have them play the game. And that's what we want to watch, because ultimately that's what we've been watching since season 33, I guess, when they went to Fiji the first time.
It's not even about the location anymore.
No, exactly. It doesn't matter.
It's just the game.
It's just the game. That's all it is. So that's how I feel about that. Should we wrap this thing up? Should we call this a an episode 6 recap of Survivor China in quotes?
It's totally derailed.
Recap.
No, I think people just like the Survivor talk. They'll take any of it, I think.
Right.
So, especially now we have inside rumors from Peih-Gee. Everybody go spread it on Reddit. She said they're going to do it in Guam. That's what she said.
That's it. Start talking, people.
That was not for me. I would love to see something like cowboy, the Western, old West.
That'd be awesome.
I agree. Why not? Make
them live like pioneers.
Yeah. You could have so many options with it. There's so many things you could do with it, and it could be fun. So I don't know. I think they have more options than they let on. But who knows?
I want to see Kid Nation come back. That's what.
Wow. Desperate times call for desperate measures.
Well, Peih-Gee, you got anything else that you want to throw in here at the end, or should we wrap this?
Do we end on Kid Nation?
Yeah, end on Kid Nation.
I'll just plug. Can I just plug my all the things that my projects?
Yeah.
So I'll just plug a few things. First of all, if you guys do not know, I do have a stream. It used to be every Sunday. I've kind of backed off of it a little bit. Phil was on it. I had a bunch of podcasters and YouTubers come play, but basically every Sunday I have Survivor game night, where I have a bunch of former Survivor players come and we play games like Werewolf, Secret Hitler, we call it Secret H, or Heroes versus Villains. Mm-hmm. These are all hidden role social deduction games. So Alexa, you have to come.
I would love to play. Days. Secret Hitler seems super fun.
It's really fun. The Werewolf is fun. Occasionally I've been doing long form Werewolf, which is kind of like Mafia. If you guys have played games like that. There is a lot of similarities to kind of Survivor almost, where you kind of have to bluff people and you're kind of not in alliances, but kind of you have to read people. So I do that. That's on Sundays. And I have a Patreon. It is patreon.com/PG Plays. So you guys can join that if you want to play games with me and join this Discord. It's mostly revolves around playing these games, but everyone that's in there is also a Survivor fan. So it's kind of fun if you're a fan of both. There's a lot of that coming up on Wednesdays. And I don't think Stephen Fishback will be doing it anymore, but for the past 4 Wednesdays, I have been doing a tabletop role-playing game with Stephen Fishback.
That's cool. That's fun.
You know, like, and Steven's like a big like D&D nerd, like I am. I think he's probably bigger than I am, but he had been wanting to do a role-playing game for the longest time. He had like Rob, Tyson lined up, and it was just really difficult to get everyone's schedules to align. And then I had an opportunity with a couple of people that do this professionally that wanted to do one with me. So I was like, Stephen, come do this with us. So we did. It is for this thing called Arium that my friend just put out. They just funded on Kickstarter. And so we've got actually the last episode is coming up this Wednesday. But if you go to my Twitch, which is twitch.tv/PG, Peihge, you can see old streams of that as well, which is more like, I guess it's kind of like an active storytelling, I guess is what, you know, there's a story and we kind of decide how it flows. So there's that. I will probably be starting a podcast soon with a friend of mine that asked me to podcast, but this is going to be about escape rooms, which is like my other this is like one of like my other like passions and hobbies is puzzles, escape room, really anything that is kind of escaping reality in a sense, like immersive theater, stuff like that. Like, you know, so it's going to be about all those kinds of things. So if you guys like board games, escape rooms, immersive theater, immersive escapism kind of stuff, experiences, I will be look out for that. So just follow me on Twitter or Instagram. And yeah, sorry,
that's amazing. That's exciting.
First of all, I'm about to do the exact same thing for us, like in about 30 seconds. But those are all super cool projects. Like the escape room pod. I love escape rooms, so that I can't wait to listen.
Really? Oh my god!
I know. I miss them. You can't do them anymore.
There are so many virtual experiences, and actually, one of the things that I started doing during this quarantine was because so many of the escape rooms had to go virtual, that friends of mine that run a review website called roomescapeartist.com asked me to come be one of their reviewers. So I contribute content for their website. It's called The Hive Mind, and basically a bunch of us will get together and play all the different virtual escape rooms that are out there, because there was so much that all came online all at once, and people were like, what should give us, you know, recommendations on what to play. And so that's where this whole thing grew, and it's become its own beast. But I create a lot of content for that as well.
Well, awesome. I would love if you could send some of those over. In quarantine, I would try virtual escape rooms, and some of them were just poorly made or like not very user friendly. So I would love to try some. I think that'd be so fun.
I'm so curious as to which ones you've played.
I'll send them to you.
All right.
They were early on. They were like in like March, April, when things were like super depressing. So maybe they'd like work out the kinks.
Yeah. Go look on roomescapeartist.com.
Okay, write this
there's
down.
a bunch of reviews there. They're coming up with functionality where, say, like, for example, you could filter by my name. I don't think they have that yet, but I've been telling them you should have, you know. So I'm like, you guys should just go see the things that I've recommended.
Yeah.
But I will email you or whatever, and I will send you some of my recommendations for really good stuff.
Sweet, good stuff.
Awesome.
Now our turn to plug. So even though I just bashed The Amazing Race, we will be recapping the 3rd episode of The Amazing Race this Wednesday. I think it airs an hour earlier this week, or it's going to be in the Survivor time slot. So we'll be watching that from 8 to 9 Eastern, and then 9 to 10 Eastern. I'm going to be recapping it with one of our patrons, McKenna Feeney. She's been a longtime patron, a longtime fan, so we're excited to have her on. And then right after that, we are recapping Moana to finish our Disney animated movie rewatch. So that's been a ton of fun. We're going to finish up with a great movie. I just watched it earlier this weekend. And then Thursday, we are going to be joined by another first-time guest. We're having Peridium come on, and we are going to be talking about It's going to be kind of like a different, so not so much a series, but just sort of like a different list we're going to make. We're going to talk about some of the best one-time players or best players who probably should have come back but might not come back, either due to just being early on in a season or maybe not being interested. So we're really excited to talk to him. That's going to be a really fun collaboration. And if you want to become a patron, go to patreon.com/Survivor Specialist. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, iTunes, wherever you listen to your podcast. And that's it. We have a really hot week for you guys. So hopefully you guys enjoy everything we're giving you.
Bye, everyone. Thanks, Peih-Gee, so much for being on.
Thanks, Peih-Gee.